Hi there! Some of you may be very familiar with the Farm Bill and the impact it has on the regional food system. If this information is redundant, please skip ahead to part 2, where I will deep dive into the recommendations. This first video is an overview of the Farm Bill, the authorization process, and the topics the Farm Bill does and does not impact directly. I will let you know I do not linger on definitions or acronyms in this video. We have a definition sheet linked in the resource page and the description box of this video if you want more information. Before I start discussing the Farm Bill, let me first introduce this omnipotent voice narrating this video and a good number of videos on this channel. If you are a council, committee, or consulting member of the Food Policy Council, go ahead and skip to the next slide. However, for those who don't know me, hi, my name is Amanda Lucas, and I'm the Community Connections Coordinator for the Greater Cincinnati Regional Food Policy Council. My title is descriptive, yet abstract. My primary role for the Food Policy Council is to build networks and opportunities for communication. I can help share resources between the council and committee members, the network members, and our stakeholders. Sharing resources furthers our goal of collective impact. Actually, there's a video about collective impact on this channel, so go check it out. The Food Policy Council is a cross-sector collaboration of organizations and individuals driving impact through advocacy and coordinated action. We work together to create a food system that is environmentally, socially, and economically resilient for the benefit of all in our region. We have 4 priorities: farm and land use, access and education, infrastructure, and institutions. We look at the regional food system from the producer to the consumer and everything in between. The Food Policy Council represents 10 counties. 4 in Southwest Ohio, including Hamilton County, 4 in Northern Kentucky, and 2 in Southeast Indiana. We are in a unique position where our reach is across state lines. This video and the next are educational tools to help spotlight specific opportunities and recommendations that can have a significant influence on our food system in the 10-county region. The Food Policy Council fulfills a niche where we can spotlight a wide range of platforms since we prioritize the range of individuals within the food system. The impact something like the Farm Bill has on our regional food system is deeply significant to our work. We have an opportunity to further educate our network and inspire them to advocate around policies that are important to their lived experiences and work. Let's go on to discuss the Farm Bill titles. This may not be new information for some of you, but the word bill in the Farm Bill name is a bit of a misnomer. Rather than being one single bill, it is a huge piece of federal legislation where a series of bills, funding requirements, and program directives cover a variety of agricultural topics, including conservation, adult nutrition, and regional market systems. It is reauthorized every 5 years and was authorized last in 2018. It is timely for the work of the Food Policy Council because the reauthorization process should take place by September of 2023, with the appropriations process taking place by the end of October 2023. As you can see from this slide, there are 12 titles of the Farm Bill. The series of bills, requirements, and funding for the USDA are clumped into particular topics, including conservation, commodities, nutrition, and horticulture. The 12 titles are Title 1, Commodities, Title 2, Conservation, Title 3, Trade, Title 4, Nutrition, Title 5, Credit, Title 6, Rural Development, Title 7, Research, Education, and Related Matters, Title 8, Forestry, Title 9, Energy, Title 10, Horticulture, Title 11, Crop Insurance, and finally, Title 12, Miscellaneous. In the second video, I organized the platform recommendations by each title and will present 4 recommendations for each of those titles. However, I do not discuss the trade title since it is beyond the scope of the Regional Food Policy Council. We also limit our discussion about forestry and energy as our scope is primarily on the food systems and resources directed towards them. Now that we discussed what is covered by the Farm Bill, let's highlight what is not. Please take a moment to pause and read through the list of what is not covered directly in the Farm Bill. I'm only going to spotlight a couple examples. The examples are, in terms of conservation efforts and opportunities, which is currently a large topic in this year's authorization of the Farm Bill, some specific clean air and water legislation for farmland is not covered by the Farm Bill. In addition, some pesticide laws are not overseen by commodity or conservation programs. This can limit the impacts some conservation directives will accomplish unless the Farm Bill authorizes a new legislation and expands its own reach. Another big surprise to me, at the very least, is that school meals and the Women, Infants, and Children, or WIC programs, are not directed by the Farm Bill, while SNAP and Senior Farmers Market Nutrition Program, among other nutrition incentive programs, are. An entirely different federal package is responsible for the reauthorization of WIC and school meals. We'll link more information about the Child Nutrition Reauthorization Act on the resource page and in the description box of this video if you want to learn more. As I said before, I will only linger briefly on definitions. You can use the definition sheet as a resource to learn more. However, I wanted to clarify the federal, state, and county government bodies that work to implement the Farm Bill. This will sound a bit like Schoolhouse Rock, so feel free to skip ahead if this is a review for anyone. The first federal body to discuss is Congress. Congress is responsible for creating a Farm Bill draft and voting on it before it goes to the president's desk. Congress consists of committees. The Senate has its own topical committees, and the House of Representatives have its own topical committees as well. Both the Senate and the House have committees focused on agriculture. When finalizing a draft of a federal package, the committees are siloed and determine their own bill drafts before drafting further to create a unified version. Once a unified version of a bill is created, then the Senate and the House must vote to approve the bill. The president will sign the bill so it becomes a law or veto the bill. Once the Farm Bill or another package becomes law, the appropriate U.S. department will be responsible for implementing the law. The United States Department of Agriculture, or the USDA, is responsible for implementing the reauthorized Farm Bill and will hold its own rulemaking process. The USDA oversees several agencies, services, and offices that are responsible for managing programs and programmatic grants that support the agricultural system. States establish their own agriculture departments. States and their departments can't implement laws that supersede federal rules without potential legal repercussions. Also, state agriculture departments can apply for federal ag money that supports state programs and infrastructure. State agriculture departments influence county and state extension offices. However, extension offices work closely with the USDA to provide resources and training to producers. Obviously, the system is complex and multi-tiered. I won't discuss this further, so let's talk about the specific Farm Bill reauthorization timeline. The process of reauthorizing the Farm Bill was outlined well by the National Sustainable Agriculture Coalition, or NSAC, as shown by the diagram on this slide. I am not going to read the diagram word for word, so pause the video to read through it. We discussed the process somewhat on the previous slide. However, it is important to remember one thing. The Senate and the House Agriculture Committees will draft, amend, and vote on their own version of the Farm Bill before a final draft is decided. Once each committee creates its own draft, the draft will be presented to its own full chamber, either the Senate or House respectively. Advocacy organizations like the Kentucky Food Action Network and the Community Farm Alliance have reported that staff for Congress members not on either of the committees of agriculture have asked when discussing the Farm Bill, how can Senator or Representative X influence this since he or she is not on the Agriculture Committee? The voting on committee drafts during the full chamber is the perfect opportunity for non-ag committee members to show support for issues in the Farm Bill before it becomes a final draft. Only after the individual chambers vote on their respective bill draft will the committee leaders from both the House and the Senate meet to create a final bill draft that will be voted on by the full chamber before going to the president. While Congress is drafting the Farm Bill, a yearly federal budget process called the Appropriations Process is occurring. I won't deep dive into it right now because I have a slide dedicated to the process. 2023 is the year that the Farm Bill reauthorization is happening. So what is the timeline? The government's timeline is never a guaranteed thing. So the timeline mapped out on the slide is the supposed timing if everything goes according to plan. As recent years may have taught us, there are always going to be delays. The process to review the 2023 Farm Bill started back in the summer of 2022 as a part of the appropriations process. USDA programs and funding are analyzed for what is working well, what is oversaturated, and what is underutilized so the budget can be adjusted accordingly. Since the Farm Bill is up for reauthorization, the appropriations hearings provide an opportunity to discuss the Farm Bill prior to 2023. Hearings for the Farm Bill will continue through the summer and maybe early fall of 2023. All the while, the committees are drafting their own version for review by the chambers. The full Congress should pass the Farm Bill reauthorization by the end of September 2023, so the bill can be signed into law by President Biden. The reauthorization of the Farm Bill isn't happening separately from all other federal processes. The appropriations process for 2024 will be happening at the same time. Both the President and Congress will be submitting appropriations proposals that will be dissected by the appropriations committees of the House and the Senate. If everything goes according to plan, the appropriations budget will be approved by October 31st, 2023. If not, the government shuts down until Congress is out of recess and comes back into session. Most of us lived through an American government shutdown. It has repercussions for a lot of our mutual work, so avoiding a shutdown is extremely important. So how does all the Farm Bill programming get funded? Well, the appropriations process, along with the mandatory funding requirements in the Farm Bill, determines how much the USDA gets budget-wise. Let's see the details of that process. You can pause and read through the step-by-step appropriations process on this slide. I am not going to read through it. However, I do want to highlight some aspects of the process. The appropriations process begins with a budget proposal, or also known as the appropriations bill, that is drafted individually by the President, the Senate Appropriations Committee, and the House Appropriations Committee. The drafts go through a similar review process as other large federal packages like the Farm Bill. Something to note about large packages like the Farm Bill, typically federal legislation packages have directives that include both mandatory funding and appropriations funding. Appropriations funding is funding that is determined annually during the budget process. Appropriations are adjustable, which means advocacy for more or less funding can occur yearly. On the other hand, mandatory funding is funding that is guaranteed for the time frame of the law's authorization. For example, mandatory funding included in the Farm Bill for its programs, grants, and agencies is guaranteed for 5 years. This cannot be adjusted until reauthorization or without the amendment process. Once appropriations are decided for the upcoming year, the USDA can begin its own rulemaking process so the Farm Bill directives and budget can be implemented. The USDA also builds in time at the end of the year for outreach and evaluation processes to help influence the following year's appropriations bill. Data on how much money is directed towards federal departments and programs in both appropriations and mandatory funding are shared publicly. Let's look at the estimated funding from the 2018 Farm Bill. On this slide, we can see the projected funding from the 2018 Farm Bill divided among the programs of the 12 Farm Bill titles. NSAC is the source of this information. It is projected funding because the funding period goes from the beginning of 2019 to the end of 2023, and by the time this video is published, April 2023 isn't over yet. However, based on the mandatory and appropriations funding, we have a good idea of how much money is dedicated to each program type by the time the 2018 Farm Bill expires. One interesting aspect of this pie chart is that the nutrition programs receive the majority of funding, over 75%, and the 2023 Farm Bill is expected to delegate as much or even more funding to the nutrition programs from 2024 to 2029. Another interesting aspect of this pie chart is that only 4 title programs get their own slice of the funding. The programs are labeled nutrition, conservation, commodities, and crop insurance. This is good news for advocates around these 4 topics since funding isn't as much of a barrier as compared to the other topics. However, the last quote-unquote interesting, and I use that word loosely, aspect of the pie chart is that the other slice that receives around 1% of the projected funding includes funding for all other 8 title programs. This means programs for energy, forestry, trade, horticulture, research and education, rural development, credit, and miscellaneous titles only receive a projected $4.2 billion combined compared to $38.5 billion for only crop insurance, for example. Funding is a huge obstacle for programs like county and state extension, research for sustainable best practices, regional and local food support, local food procurement, and rural utilities and renewable energy development, just to name a few. Many of these programs are oversaturated and cannot meet the needs for producers who apply for support. The reauthorization and appropriations processes are right around the corner, and so are opportunities to minimize the obstacles to underfunded programs. There's an interesting part of the federal package authorization process, and it is called submitting marker bills. The primary intention of marker bills is for a particular topic to be presented and discussed within a Senate and/or House committee. Marker bills will not usually get passed into law. Of course, there are exceptions, but rather are submitted as a way to show and garner support for particular legislation in larger packages like the Farm Bill. Farm Bill marker bills were initially called for by March 15, 2023. This was an opportunity for non-agriculture committee members to show support by either submitting and/or co-sponsoring marker bills. Congress extended the deadline for marker bills to April 2023. Some additional marker bills will be submitted potentially after this video comes out, so depending on when you watch this, there is time to rally your congressional members to support particular issues of the Farm Bill prior to the drafting process. The Food Policy Council created a spreadsheet with a list of the Farm Bill marker bills. The video on this slide shows the spreadsheet. It is a living document, so the spreadsheet will be updated throughout April. It is not an exhaustive list, so we appreciate your understanding if we are missing a bill you are passionate about. The spreadsheet is linked in this video's resource page and description box. Depending on the marker bill, the bill can be submitted to several committees for review. Remember, House bills are submitted to House committees, and Senate bills are submitted to Senate committees. There is a way to submit marker bills to both agriculture committees in the Senate and the House. You can see the repeat of bill names in the spreadsheet. This indicates a senator and representative partnered, so there is an increased chance of an issue being brought up in both the Senate and House drafts. Marker bills act as a touchstone for the reauthorization and rulemaking process of the Farm Bill. This helps guide the constituent on what might happen next. I keep referencing the definition sheet. Well, here it is. We created, using the USDA website and subpages as resources for the information, a definition sheet that includes an extensive list of terms related to the Farm Bill and agriculture system. Obviously, people can find the definitions through the USDA website on their own. However, we thought it would be helpful to curate a tool where the associated terms are together for easy reference and mutual understanding. You can find the sheet linked in the resource slide and the description box of this video. The Food Policy Council's niche in the advocacy process is two things. 1. Spotlight federal, city, and state level policies through the regional lens and how it may impact our 10-county region. 2. We can help with capacity building, networking, and resource development like this presentation and the supporting documents, so our network members can advocate for policies that build a more resilient regional food system. So with this information, what's next? The first thing you can do is watch the second video where we curate recommendations from state and national organizations. When you watch the second video, we'll end with specific actions that you can take to advocate for the Farm Bill issues. The second thing is to stay informed, whether it is subscribing to us on this YouTube channel, attending in-person events, including our council and committee meetings, signing up for our quarterly newsletter, or following our blog posts. We can help keep you updated on policy and programmatic issues that impact our regional food system. We have come to the end of our first Farm Bill video. Please check out the second video focusing on the recommendations and how they may impact our region. On this slide, you can find the resources mentioned in this video. You can also find them in the description box down below along with the link to the second video. The resources include the Food Policy Council's website, the marker bill spreadsheet, and the definitions sheet. See you in the next video.